And good evening, everyone, on Saturday night, November 29th, 2025. Yes, I'm doing a Saturday night. I figured I might as well. Going to talk a little about George Harrison. Going to talk about Charlie Daniels a little bit. Tonight, the 29th of November was the day that George Harrison passed away, of course. We know that. But also in 1974, on the 29th of November, Charlie Daniels released the Fire on the Mountain album. And I want to talk a little bit about that a little bit later on in the show tonight. But tonight, we're going to start off talking about George Harrison. I don't know who all we got in. I see a few people coming in. A few people. Some of you are home on Saturday night. That's all right. I'm always home. Once it gets dark, I come in. I don't get out after dark. So make sure you sign in. Let me know where you're from. I got to know who's here. I can't tell that. All I can do is just see the people coming in. Michael Chewing, good evening to you, my friend. Good to see you. Yes, Charlie was awesome. I got some video clips from a video I've done. I've got them on Charlie. I've got them on George Harrison. Some of them are on YouTube, some of them aren't. So either way, you guys will get to see them. Commercial free, too. We don't have to put up with no ads. So good evening to you. Hi, Hornback. Good to see you, my friend. I'm doing very well. I was just sitting there. You know what, Hornback? I was just sitting there humming, I'm so tired of being lonely. Handle Me with Care. I was sitting there humming that song to me while I was making sure everything was working here. Yeah, I did. I got a video. I want you all to watch it. Wait till a few more people get in here, and we'll get it started. I want you to listen to it. This video, let me ask you all before we started, how do you feel about this? Do you believe that Paul and John were the ones that helped George back in the Beatles from his songwriting and getting songs put on the albums? I just want to know how you guys feel. I mean, it's all right to agree to disagree. There's no problem with it. You know how that goes in here. We can agree to disagree. But I want to know how you guys feel. Do you think that was John and Paul's fault? You have the same birthday as Charlie Daniels. All right. Are you any relation to Paul Riddle, the drummer for Marshall Tucker? Hi, Doug. Thanks for stopping in. Hang on a minute. I gotta do a little of adjustment here. I changed some things around. All right. There you go. Now, there we go. There I am. Okay. But anyway, what I was saying about George, a lot of people, said that, Paul and John held him back. Now, I do know George was the baby of the group, and I'm sure that being the youngest, now I don't know, I was the youngest in my family, so I had older brothers and sisters, and I was always getting kind of, pushed down a little bit. I mean, I think that happens. And when you're in a band, especially a band as close as the Beatles were, especially John, Paul, and George, they was together for a long, long time, even before Ringo. I'm sure they was like brothers. So it kind of went that way. You're thinking you're related somehow. Yeah, maybe. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Dick Crum. Good to see you. Sherry Keller. Long time no see. Thanks for stopping in. But anyhow, I have this video that I put out. It was on YouTube for a little while and basically didn't do much. People, nobody watched it. I don't know why. But guess what? We're going to watch it. It's a short video. It's not real long. And after you watch this video, let me know. We're going to talk about it. How you feel. Was George held back by John and Paul, or was there other aspects that held him back with the Beatles? Because we all know George had a boatload of good songs, because once he left the Beatles and toward the end, we got to hear some of them. But anyway, this is the video that I put out. Oh, it's been a while. And we're going to watch it. It's short. It don't last a long time, so I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. But I want you to watch the video and tell me what you think after it's over. If you have any problem with the audio, let me know. I can turn it up or turn it down, whatever. I'm not sure of this. We did this last Wednesday. We actually talked about George a little bit, but we was watching a video on something else. I forget who it was now. Can't remember. My mind's, I'm old. All right. Hey, Dwayne. All right. I'm going to get this video fired up here. And wait a minute. Where's my thing? Where's my upload at? Holy cow. My upload's gone. That can't be right. Tell me that's not right. Oh, I see. They change these softwares around all the time. It's amazing. No. Why do they do this to me? It's hard enough anyhow. But let's see here. Okay. Here we go. We're going to watch this video. I want you all to pay attention to it, listen to it. And when we get done talking, when we get done with it, I may stop it just a little bit and make a few comments. And you guys feel free to comment on it anytime you want. Okay. And here we go. Let me know if you have any problems with the audio. When people say George Harrison was isolated by the Beatles, Paul McCartney, and John Lennon, I don't really buy it. Sure, he was a baby of the Beatles and took a little time to mature as a musician and songwriter, but I don't believe John and Paul had anything to do with not letting George get his songs out there. It was the record executives who had found a cash cow in Lennon and McCartney's songs, and they wasn't going to slow that down just to give George a chance. Right or wrong, fair or not, that's the way it was back then. They wasn't sure how long the Beatles would last, so while the money was rolling in, they weren't going to change a thing. This had nothing to do with how John and Paul felt about George and his songwriting. Now let's get right into this video and see if you agree with me or not. George Harrison was the youngest of the four Beatles. Throughout his career with them, he played guitar, sang, and wrote songs in the shadows of Lennon and McCartney. I guess some people can say he was pushed to the side because he didn't have as much talent and he was just there as a supporting cast. Maybe so. He was the baby of the band, so it would put him a year or two behind the others in his development. I'm going to stop it here. I want you to look at this picture. This was taken in Hamburg. I believe this was on their first trip over, or the first or their second trip. And look at these guitars they're playing. John had the Rickenbacker at that time, and Paul is sitting at a piano. That's Paul with his back to us there. And he's sitting at an upright piano. I can imagine if they could even, I wonder if they could even hear it. At least it looks like John and George and Stuart have their own amplifiers. I don't see an amplifier up there for Paul. I don't know where his guitar is at, because I know he played guitar mostly, but he did play some piano in the early days. And I just thought this picture was really cool. And, this is before the Beatle haircuts and everything. Although, if you look at Stewart on the bass, it does look like that his hair he's trying to comb it forward. And that was the girl he actually stayed to marry, Astrid Kircher, idea to change the hairstyle. But this is before you can see George and John never changed their hair. They still had their hair slicked back in the pompadour. I'll let it go now. I'll stop. I'll shut up. You can watch the rest of the video. But through the years of growing up a Beatle, if you look a little closer at him, you can see George start to emerge into his own person. And when given the chance to step out, George was ready. I don't find it surprising at all that George Harrison was the first Beatle to release a #1 song and album after the Beatles' breakup. You could see it coming if you look back close enough. Like George himself said, "I didn't have many tunes on Beatles records, so doing an album like All Things Must Pass was like going to the bathroom and letting it out." One reason people might think John and Paul put George in the shadows: they had been writing together for a few years already. They had quite a bit of material started, and when the opportunity arose, they were ready. And another reason George didn't get the chance was the cigar smokers higher up had a product that was making them big money, and they wasn't going to rock the boat or try and fix something that wasn't broke at that time. One thing for sure is, George was paying attention and working on his songs all during this time. He usually wrote alone, but I'm sure when they had the time, John and Paul gave him advice. He did get a few cuts on an album once in a while. George wrote 22 songs on his own that made it on Beatles albums, out of the 180 or so original songs recorded for him. His earlier material was good. Maybe not great, but there was good solid songs, like Taxman and If I Needed Someone. You could hear him starting to develop. Some of the songs that made up his All Things Must Pass album, like Isn't It a Pity, Let It Down, and Hear Me, Lord, and the title song, All Things Must Pass, were among the songs that he had routinely overlooked when picking songs for Beatles albums. At the end of the Beatles' run together, George did get the songs Here Comes the Sun and Something onto the Abbey Road album. The song Something was to become the second most covered Beatles song, just behind Yesterday. Frank Sinatra said that Something was the best written love song the Beatles ever recorded. That's saying a lot. George first auditioned for the Quarrymen, later to become the Beatles, in 1958 at 15 years old. It took a little more time, just hanging around to get him in, and Paul talking to John, who thought George was a bit young for them. But soon George was the guitarist for the group, and at 17 years old, he headed out to Hamburg, Germany with the group and really started to cut his teeth mastering the guitar. George worked himself into a good guitarist during these early years, also started singing lead vocals on some songs. Paul also helped George to learn to sing harmony. Back in those days, you really had to be on your toes and have a good ear to sing harmony, as there was no such things as monitors. Most of the time, they were lucky to have a PA system for some gigs. But either way, George learned and became a very good lead singer and harmony singer. By the time the Beatles returned from their first United States trip in February of 1964, they were put under the gun to get new material out, and Lennon and McCartney worked the magic again with the Hard Day's Night album, sealing the deal to what was working and selling. So again, George, who really started to get serious about songwriting around this time, was left behind. We have to remember here that at this time in the Beatles' career, nobody knew how long this would last. So everyone was in a hurry to make as much as they could and do it quickly. The Lennon-McCartney team was putting out hits, and as I said, the big boys upstairs was not going to let that change. Their producer, George Martin, was told by his bosses to keep doing what was working, and he did. So really, George Harrison's fate was pretty much sealed. And although he was allowed to get a few songs on some of the albums to come later, he had to really fight and kiss ass to get him a cut on one. But after John and Paul decided to walk away from the Beatles, George was free to do the same, and he had a backlog of many great songs just waiting to record. When they started the serious recording on the All Things Must Pass album, George brought in a lot of players to work with him on it. Some really great musicians. Of course, his closest Beatle friend Ringo was there, along with Billy Preston, steel guitarist Pete Drake, and a very young Peter Frampton, who was quoted as saying, "This was the greatest time ever." Then there was members of the group Badfinger, and some of the members of Delaney and Bonnie's group. Other players included Jim Gordon, Carl Rattle, Bobby Whitlock, and Eric Clapton, who all four ended up forming Derek and the Dominoes while participating in these sessions. Even old friend and bodyguard Mal Evans played some percussion, and the list could go on, but you get the idea. George had some of the best in there working on this album. The album was produced by George himself, along with Phil Spector. Although I like a lot of the songs Spector produced, I could have done without his wall of sound on a few of the cuts from George's album. But that's just me. Either way, the album, even today, is considered one of the best post-Beatle albums released, and many consider it the best. A few music historians have even mentioned this album in the same breath as Sgt. Pepper's. That says a lot. If you haven't listened to the album All Things Must Pass, you should. Even if you're not a big Beatles or a George Harrison fan, you need to. Just for the fact of hearing a very well-produced album with some of the best written songs of that era on it. Maybe things worked out best for George Harrison in the long run. From what we know about him, I'm sure he found good in his being the youngest Beatle and having to wait for his time to step out in the light. Because when he did, he lit up the rock world with this album, All Things Must Pass. And there you have it, folks. What do you think? Am I right? Am I wrong? I know for a fact that the one factor, let's keep George up for a little bit. The one factor into this with George, and I have read this a few different times in the book, and Brian Epstein, their manager, said at the time, that's why the Beatles worked so hard, from 63 to 67 or so, 68, was because at that time, they didn't realize that these songs was still going to be played in 2025 like they are. They didn't know that. They've seen so many artists came and went at that time. They was there for a couple, 3 years, just like it is today, or it was in the 80s or 90s or 70s. Bands came and they lasted for just a little bit, and then they went away and their songs was kind of forgotten. So they had to get out. They were trying to make as much money as they could, get it while the getting was good. The Beatles was hot and they pushed it. And Lennon and McCartney was just spitting out song after song after song. And they was working, they all the songs they wrote, just all the way up the charts. That's why I truthfully believe that George did not, it wasn't John and Paul so much that held George back. It was the record companies. They did not, it wasn't broke, so don't fix it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And it wasn't broke, and it never really was broke the songwriting team and the songs. It was the Beatles that broke. They had been together just entirely too long, and it was time to split up. And I believe that was probably the best thing that happened for George Harrison. There's no doubt. The All Things Must Pass album, and think about it, Abbey Road had something, and Here Comes the Sun on it. Good golly. Them are two fantastic, well-written songs. And George, I said this in the video, and I'll reiterate again. George, a lot of the songs that was on All Things Must Pass, and like I said, if you haven't listened to that album, you can find it on YouTube. Sit down and just put a set of phones on, put them on your head and listen to that album and listen to these songs. And a lot of them was pitched, the last year or so with the Beatles, last couple of years. And they didn't buy it, and I don't think it was John and Paul that wouldn't buy it. I think it was George Martin and all the record executives, the labels and everything. I really and truly do. And I think George was I think he was something really special. He was kind of that part of the Beatles. He didn't know, you didn't notice him, but if you'd have taken him away, I don't think the Beatles would ever have been the same. Although, Lennon and McCartney was a very, very hard duo to split up. I mean, them guys, their voices and everything was spot on. But George, he helped make the Beatles and everything like that. I really do. And as Hornbacks, I believe it was, who was it mentioned, the Traveling Wilburys. George put a lot of that together. And that was a fine group. I mean, look at the vocalists they had. They put out some great songs. George went on and went on, like I said, and he passed away on November 29th to this date, and it was in 2001. So I guess it's been 24 years ago. And he actually passed away at a property belonging to Paul McCartney in Beverly Hills, California, and he was 58 years old. Olivia and Donnie, Ravi Shankar was there with him, and his last message to the world. Let me look. I'll have to quote. I don't want to quote this wrong. George said, "Everything else can wait, but the search for God cannot." I see. And the search for God cannot wait, and to love one another. And that was George's final statement to the world. And sure, George had his problems. I mean, we're all only human. I have Patty Boyd's book that she wrote about George and Eric Clapton. And sure, George had, we all do. You can't look at it that way. I believe George was a very important part of the Beatles, and I'd like to hear what you all have to think about this. And let's go through some comments real quick here. We talked about George. Let's see. Where did I leave off, guys? Hang on just a minute now. I totally agree with that. George he was a little bit younger, and he was just a little bit slower to catch up with Paul and John, because Paul and John had been together and had been writing, in the early years. So they had a little bit of a head start. And when it was time and George was catching up, and it wasn't John and Paul, I don't believe that a bit. I believe it was the record executives and George Martin and Brian Epstein. They had a working product and were not changing it. And it kind of closed the door to George. So I don't know. Hello, Melissa Jennifer Jones. Good to see you. Thank you. Sadie Lamp. Nice to see you also. All things must pass, even the tax man. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Turn back. Yeah, George had a very good ear for music. I mean, and here's the thing about that I don't think a lot of people give a lot of credit for. You know, you got John, Paul, and George that was writing and producing songs, but they learned from one of the best. George Martin was a fantastic producer for the Beatles, for them young men. He made them sound that way, and they learned a lot from George Martin. You know, George Martin's actually the one that pulled Jeff Beck back up and got him to do instrumental music and got him, what was the album? Blow by Blow, I believe. Don't hold me to that. You know, I'm talking off the top of my head now. But anyway. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I agree on that, Mick. Here comes the sun. They just they you know, and something they both have them great lines, good storytelling, and they got them little guitar riffs that you can't get out of your head. You remember them. They're nothing fancy, but you remember them. That they work. Yes, something is the best love song. That is really a good love song. You know, Patty Boyd, Patty Harrison, Patty Clapton, the one that married George and then married Eric Clapton. She talked about that song. That song was written for her, and Eric Clapton. Excuse me, boy, I got a frog in my throat. Eric Clapton wrote Wonderful Tonight for her. Two really great love songs was written for that gal. Oh, Ringo had some good success. You know, he had a couple, I think he had two number one songs. Now, Ringo wasn't the musician or the vocalist, but Ringo knew how to pick songs and how to get together, and he knew what songs he could sing and what he could do. And I really think that was a big thing. They was all talented. You know, there's no doubt. All right, man. I'm sorry you have to take off, Hornback. We'll send prayers over for your brother. Definitely. Thanks for stopping by, Hornback. I appreciate it. I think he did. I thought he wrote incredible songs. There's no doubt. I believe he was, yeah, definitely the most spiritual one, because once they got in, after they went to the with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, you know, George started meditating, praying, and you know, he believed, you know, in God, and he believed in life. You know, the body dies, but the soul and spirit goes on. George believed that, and it also, you know, it was also stated. Ringo had went and seen him right before he passed, and Paul did too. And George was not afraid to die. That's both of them said that. Take care, my friend. Yes, I agree, Michael. He was what can I say, a free spirit then. There was no John, Paul, record producers or anything, but he did have, you know, the Beatles breakup was a pain in the butt. George never did, I don't believe, seriously, ever want to get back together with the Beatles. I don't think he would have cared had they never done it. because once he got away, he was like I guess he reminded you of a little dog. You know, you open the door and he takes off running out through the yard and he's just ripping grass and just, oh my God, just so happy to be alive. And I think that's the way George felt too. And that's nothing off the not liking John or Paul or anything. The situation he was put in was tough on him. Exactly, it was. It all boiled down to money. They was trying to make as much money as they could, and it was a shame in a way because George had written some good songs and didn't get the royalties off of them. But once he got All Things Must Pass, you know, he got his writing royalties in, and George was very, very, very successful. He was a very, very successful songwriter and had plenty of money, you know, even with the Beatles, though, you know, he didn't get all the songwriting royalties and was as rich as John and Paul. But I believe he was richer in spirit and he did make a lot more money later on. You know, so we can look at one way or the other. That was just, you know, my feelings on it. That was just my feelings on it. But, you know, may the gods bless George Harrison. And he was a very important part of the Beatles. And some of his guitar riffs in the Beatles will never, ever go away. You know, they're stuck. Like I said, he had some really good guitar playing that stuck. And all righty. Well, that's it. That's it. Anybody else got anything they want to say about George Harrison? Speak now or forever hold your peace, because we're going to move on. And I got something else I want to talk about. If y'all don't mind. I'll give you a second here and see if anybody else has got anything to say. If you don't, we're going to move on and talk about the Charlie Daniels Band. And the reason for that is on November 29th, 1974, the Fire on the Mountain album was released. Now, this was the band's, Charlie Daniels Band's, second album. Now, this was Charlie's fifth album. Okay. So there's a lot to be said about Charlie's career as he started. You know, he was a studio musician for a while before he put his band together. And this album here was the one, excuse me, the one that really, really got him going. And I got a video that I want to show on some of this if y'all don't mind. You may have seen it. I put it out on YouTube. It basically did nothing. YouTube didn't push it or anything. I don't know why. I don't think they like Charlie Daniels for some reason, but I do. And we'll watch a little video here in a minute. But I want to talk about this album first. Fire on the Mountain, a lot of people think of the song Fire on the Mountain, which was the Marshall Tucker Band song, Fire on the Mountain. The song was actually written, and they wanted Charlie to record it. The song was written by the rhythm guitarist, George McCorkle. But by the time George got it done, they took it to Charlie. They had already had the album put together. Now, they didn't have a lot of songs. That album did not have a lot of songs on it. It was only 8 songs on that album. And 2 of them was live cuts from that first volunteer jam. No Place to Go and Orange Blossom Special. The song that was on there, Trudy, was on Fire on the Mountain. And it was completely different. Trudy came out, that was one of Charlie's first releases, I don't know how many years back, okay? And it had a totally different feel. It was kind of blues, funk, and they changed it to put it on this album here, and it really, really, really made it go. Long-Haired Country Boy was on that album. Let's see. I'm getting my things are messing up here. Hold on a minute. I'm sorry. I'm trying to catch up with some of these. Just a minute. I'm not shunning anybody. It's just that I haven't. It's slow. These comments give me a problem here. Let's see. Let's see. I think I'm here. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Yes, he was. Now, I'll ask you another question. You like little tidbits like that. Fire on the Mountain was recorded up in Macon, Georgia at Capricorn Records, where Marshall Tucker, Wet Willie, Jimmy Hall and Wet Willie, the Allman Brothers, all of them recorded. On the song, now on this album, Fire on the Mountain, the South's Gonna Do It was on there, Trudy, Feeling Free, and Long Haired Country Boy. Now, if you remember correctly, the song Long Haired Country Boy was a big one. There's a dobro in that. I don't know if y'all heard it or not. But anybody know who played the dobro on that? They had a guest come in to play the dobro. That was nobody from Charlie's band at that time. Let's see if I got a picture of that guest. Let's see. I got to remove this. Anybody? There you go. You nailed it right there. I won't even look up a picture. Yes, Dickie Betts played the dobro on Fire on the Mountain album. He sure did. He come in and helped Charlie and them out. Them guys was always, crossing with each other. I think Charlie played. He may have even played some guitar on some of Marshall Tucker's albums too. See, Charlie was a studio musician, and he played on quite a few. He different songs out of Nashville. He works this. He did everything to make it. But yeah, it was Dickie Betts. He sure did. He played on that. And this is before. I'll show you some real cool pictures real quick. This is before Charlie really had the band that lasted quite a long time. When Fire on the Mountain came out, he lost a few members and things like that. He still had the keyboard player, Taz DiGregorio. And Gary Allen was playing drums, Fred Edwards. But what was his name? Charlie Hayward played bass. He wasn't there yet, and neither was Tommy Crane. This album was released on November 29, 1974. And I've told this story, and I got a few pictures, and I'm going to show them real quick, and then we're going to look at this video, and I want you to tell me what you think. You may have seen it, you may not have. I don't know. This one was released recently, and it just YouTube didn't push it out, so we can watch it here with no ads. But anyway, the album was released November 29, 1974. In April of 1975, this was a concert held in St. Louis, Missouri, and I happened to be there. And you can see right in the background, I know you can't see my cursor, but in the background to the left, you can see it's called the Science Center now, but that was the planetarium at the time in St. Louis. This was in Forest Park at the park. And I was here, and the first time I saw Charlie Daniels live. And you can look, Charlie wasn't as big, at that time in the belly. He wasn't as big of a guy as he was. But this was a fine show. And I really, really enjoyed it. He did a few fiddle songs. He didn't do a lot of fiddle in the early years. The fiddle was more of what can I say? The fiddle was more of a sideshow for Charlie. He was basically, a two-guitar band, and he would break the fiddle out on a song or two, like Orange Blossom Special. And at this time, he had The South's Gonna Do It, which was, that song just tore people up. I mean, they went totally nuts over that one. And this is right when That's a young Tommy Crane there who played with Charlie for, I believe, 14 or 15 years after that. He had just joined the band and was playing guitar with him and singing harmony. And Tommy wrote on quite a lot of Charlie's songs after that. And, of course, Taz DiGregorio was with him later on. Oh, let me see here. Let me get this lined up. I'm going to... let me see. I'm sorry, Melissa. I missed that. Oh yeah, they did do that quite often. You wouldn't believe some of the players that have played on different albums and things like that. You know, some of them did it and was paid. Some of them just did it because they wanted to do it. They wanted to play and make something sound good. You have to remember, money was important back then. You know, we talked about it, even with the Beatles. Money, kind of held George Harrison back because they had something that was working. But back then, music was real. The sound was important, and it was very real. It's nothing like it is today. You know, they go into the studio, and a lot of it is, drum tracks that's already been down. I mean, our music today is totally different. And it's why I don't really listen to much of it. I like to listen to the music that, I like to listen to the music that's real. I'm like that. And I don't have no, call to listen to it. Like I said, hearing Charlie Daniels back at this time, that PA system they use right there wasn't any effects on it. I mean, they may have had a compressor or something to put on it, but these guys was just playing straight up in your face music. And just a little side note too, when I saw that concert, this was early April in 1975, and you know who opened that concert for Charlie Daniels? It was Rush. Yep, it sure was. And Neil Peart had just joined them within that year. And they was three-piece, and they opened, and I was so impressed with Rush. I really was. I just melted when I heard them guys, because I'd really not heard a lot. They hadn't been really pushing their music hard yet in St. Louis. But it was great. It was a great show, a great concert, and Charlie Daniels Fire on the Mountain. And I'm gonna play this video here. Let me get this set up. Rush, man. This was early Rush. I have no clue, like I said, what they're gonna be sounding like now, or anything with this new tour. But Geddy Lee, man, he sang his hind end off. Oh my God. And this wasn't trust me, this was not a fancy PA system they had there. Passing through, in the 70s, right. Oh yeah, they beat the road, man, in the early to mid 70s. Them guys was all over. That's, they did that to keep money coming in and to keep pushing their songs and everything. They did. All right. I want you guys to watch this. You may have seen this video. You may not. It's not a long one either. I'm going to put it on. Just watch it. And when it's over, we'll talk about it a little bit. Talk about Charlie Daniels and the Fire on the Mountain album. And there's a little more information on here talking about his band, not his band so much as himself, how Charlie got things going. Oh, wow. Wait a minute. One more thing before we start. I like this. You're going to see Rush, LA's first show, June 7th. You know what? Let me know how they sound, and try to see. I don't know if you can tell. There's so many bands going out there, and a lot of them are lip syncing nowadays, and you can't believe the ones that are doing it. I'd really like to know how Geddy sings, if he can still hit it. Are they tuning his voice? Is he still got it? It's hard to keep that voice. I have nothing against it, but I just wonder how they're going to sound. I can't think of her name. The girl that's going to be playing drums with them. She should be a nice fill-in for Neil. She'll never be Neil Peart, but nobody ever will. You can't replace him. But I still think they're going to sound good, and I still think they deserve to play. And Doug Riddle, I would like to know how they sound if you can get back with me on that. Yeah, Annika Niles. Or is it Nils? Great. Torpedo Torben. Is that it? Torpedo Torben. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it a whole lot. We're getting ready to watch a video here right now that I put out. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not. We're going to watch it here. Commercial ad free. So we can do that. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's her name. And she is, this woman, is a very good drummer. Yeah, Charlie crossed it. My dad, who was hardcore country, loved Charlie Daniels. So that's all, that says it all right there. He liked Charlie Daniels. Okay, guys, let's watch a video because I'm running short of time here tonight. And I'm going to share the screen. Entire screen. Oh, yeah. Turn the audio on. Boom. All right. Let's watch a little bit of this video and tell me what y'all think. You may have seen it. And if you have, I'm sorry. I don't mean to. It's just, it didn't get very many views from YouTube. YouTube did not help this video at all. And let's remember Charlie Daniels, too. And let's think about the Fire on the Mountain album that came out. How many years ago was that? 1974 to 2025. Is that 51 years? Holy cow. Oh, yeah. She's played with some of the big ones. We're moving on now, guys. Here's Charlie Daniels. Uh-oh. Something happened. Hang on a minute. Well, we're not going to see it because the damn thing froze up on my one side. Let me take it off for a second. I got a screen froze up. Hang on just a second, guys. I don't get it. Am I still live? Let me remove this. See if that stopped it. Hey, that's cool, man. You don't have to watch it. I was just going to put it on because we was talking about Charlie. I got it froze, man. I don't know how to get it out either. I got on a screen. I'm scared to. Yeah, it's on a split screen. Yeah, John Mayall's birthday today. Yeah, he would have been 92. I've seen that. Oh, let me see here. Let me look for a minute, guys. I need to see what the heck is going on. This is another issue. Let me try something here. This is another issue. Oh, let me see. Okay. Let's see if I can do this one more time and see if I can make this work. I just got to get it to another screen and do it like this and go here. Thank you. Oh, I'm not ignoring you guys. It's just, this is really complicated. You can't believe all this stuff going on. And I'm just an old country boy. Oh, that's a lot of stuff. Oh, let's see here. Okay. All right, we're going to try this one more time, guys. And let's see if we can get Charlie going. Artists who don't just play music, they leave a mark on the soul of a nation. Charlie Daniels was one of those men. From the Carolina hills to the world's biggest stages, his guitar and fiddle told stories of pride, faith, and American spirit. He sang about hard times and redemption, about standing tall when the world tried to knock you down. Charlie wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing truth, one note at a time. And through every song, every concert, every word he spoke, he reminded us what it meant to believe in something real. This is more than a story of a musician. It's a legacy of a man who played from the heart and never stopped until the day he died. He was born Charles Edward Daniels in Wilmington, North Carolina on October 28, 1936. The only son of William Carlton Daniels, a lumberjack, and his wife, LaRue Hammonds. He was raised in a family that had deep faith in God and valued virtues like honesty and hard work. His musical influences included Pentecostal gospel, local bluegrass bands, rhythm and blues, and country music. In 1953, he, along with some of his friends, formed a bluegrass band named Misty Mountain Boys. And it was around that time he started writing songs. Charlie spent his early days tuning his radio to hear broadcasts from Nashville, Tennessee. Music was his theme throughout his early life. By the time Charlie graduated high school in 1955, he had become skilled in playing the guitar, fiddle, banjo, and the mandolin. He moved to Nashville. He began making a name for himself as a songwriter, session musician, and a producer. In 1964, he co-wrote a song, It Hurts Me, with Joy Byers. It was recorded by Elvis Presley and put on the B-side of Kissin' Cousins. He went on to play on landmark albums such as Bob Dylan's Nashville Skyline, numerous Leonard Cohen albums, and even tried his hand at producing on the Youngbloods' Elephant Mountain and Ride the Wind. Charlie also played on Ringo Starr's second album, Buku of Blues, in 1970. Here's a great photo of the musicians and others involved in the project. Besides Charlie, who's in the back row, second from the left, there are many names here I'm sure you'll recognize. See if you can locate any of them in the picture. Harmonica player Charlie McCoy, bluegrass fiddler Jim Buchanan, Neil Young, and steel guitarist Ben Keith, the longtime Elvis Presley drummer DJ Fontana, and the legendary backup singers the Jordanaires. Oh, and another guitarist with a bright future as a recording artist. His name was Jerry Reed. Charlie said that working this session with Ringo was great. He said Ringo came in and was just one of the guys and was just a breeze to work with. And one more quick note about a song on this album. The song, I Wouldn't Have You Any Other Way, the female singing with Ringo is a girl named Jeannie Kendall, who would later on in 1977, along with her father Royce, would record the Grammy-winning hit song Heaven's Just a Sin Away. But moving on, Charlie decided to put his own band together. It started out in 1972 with Charlie, joined by Barry Barnes on guitar, Mark Fitzgerald on bass, Fred Edwards and Gary Allen on drums, and Taz DiGregorio on the keyboards. They started recording albums for Kama Sutra Records. Now, when you heard the song Trudy on the band's first album, the song was kind of rhythm and blues and funky sounding. Not the way you know the song today, but it was the storyline that really catches your ear. As Charlie was to prove over and over again, he was very good at telling a story in his songs. But as far as the music goes, the first album was okay, but it didn't do well out on the market. Then came Uneasy Rider, another story song, and it seemed to help get the traction Charlie needed for the next big release, the Fire on the Mountain album. This was actually his fifth album, and came along at the right time. Released just a month or so after Charlie held his first volunteer jam at the War Memorial Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee, with a live cut of Orange Blossom Special from that volunteer jam on the album. People were starting to sit up and take notice. Charlie's story of the long haired country boy and how the South was going to do it again sent him off and flying down the road. Charlie Daniels wasn't just a performer, he was a force that brought people together. Back in the 70s and 80s, when Southern rock was finding its identity, Charlie helped unite the whole scene through his legendary volunteer jam concerts in Nashville. What began in 1974 as a simple celebration for his band's album turned into something much bigger. A yearly gathering of friends, heroes, and legends. The Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, Marshall Tucker, and so many more came together on that stage. And not just to play music, but to share in the spirit that made the South proud. Charlie believed that music wasn't about genres and labels. It was about heart. And he carried that same spirit on the road, touring alongside the very bands he inspired. To so many of them, he was more than a fellow musician. He was a brother. Those volunteer jams weren't just concerts. They were celebrations of life, friendship, and the sounds of the South. And through it all, Charlie Daniels was the man at the center, the heartbeat of it all. I think the pinnacle of the Charlie Daniels Band would have to be the song The Devil Went Down to Georgia, which was on the band's 7th album and Charlie's 10th, released on April 20th, 1979, Million Mile Reflections. The title refers to the band having passed the million-mile mark in its touring. The song Reflections is a tribute to Elvis Presley, Janis Joplin, and Ronnie Van Zant. Charlie dedicated the album to Van Zant, who was killed in the plane crash on October 20th, 1977. Million Mile Reflections became the band's most commercially successful album, being certified triple platinum in the United States and peaking at number 5 on the Billboard Top LP charts. It also reached number 1 on the Top Country Albums chart. The song The Devil Went Down to Georgia won a Grammy for Best Country Performance and the Country Music Association Award for Single of the Year. Pretty good for a song that was wrote in a hurry as a last-minute add to the album because Charlie realized they had no fiddle songs on it. In 1983, Charlie donated the fiddle he used to perform and record The Devil Went Down to Georgia to the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. The Devil Went Down to Georgia, In America, Still in Saigon, Saddle Tramps, and the list goes on and on. Charlie's songs were just telling stories. You don't hear it said that much, but I really believe he was as good of a writer and storyteller as he was a musician. And speaking of musicians, Charlie's band had some great ones who worked with him through the years. Now, I'm not going to try and dive into them here in this video, but you can keep an eye out for another video in the very near future highlighting some of these great players who made up the Charlie Daniels Band. Yeah, I'm going to have to stop sharing here and come back. Guys, I'm running short of time tonight, believe it or not, and I got a bunch of stuff going on. We can finish this, or you can look on the channel, and you can find the rest of this. But I want to take a few minutes here and talk about Charlie and Fire on the Mountain and the things, how good of a guy Charlie Daniels was before we get out of here. Do you know that when they put The Devil Went Down to Georgia, they had to hurry and write that song because the album was already finished and they needed a fiddle song. And Charlie wrote the words and had the idea of the song. And he got the band together and put it, and you know, he basically, it was his song. But if you look on the songwriters, the credits, all 6 members of that band was considered songwriters on that song. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if you know a lot about songwriting or whatever and royalties, but that's a lot of money. And he put every band member's name on that song. Both drummers, bass player, keyboard player, the other guitar player, and himself. They all 6 made the same amount of money off that song. And I think that's really good. Hang on just a second. This thing is really messing with me. I'll be right back. You know, I think StreamYard, I use StreamYard. This is a StreamYard program that I use. And it is really, really becoming a pain in the butt. And I pay a lot of money for this darn thing. I don't know what the deal is with it, but it's real blurry. And not hold, and I trust me, it's not this computer here. This is a hot rod computer that I'm on. It's one of them gaming computers, you know, that's it's liquid cooled and everything. There's no fans in it. I mean, this thing's a monster, and I got great internet service. You know, I'm direct lined right into the modem, and it's just not doing it. But anyway, guys, I've really enjoyed it tonight. You know, we can go through Charlie some more, and I'm going to be back Wednesday night, of course. And I am going to do Thursday night with Captain Creepy on the Scare Me Now. So if you want to catch me on Scare Me Now on Thursday night, I'll be there. Some of you guys come by there. I know I see you every once in a while. And I'm going to do a few more, but I think Creepy, we're going to move that over to his channel, and I'll have to get you guys a link if you want, so you can follow him over there. He's going to keep up with it, and I'm still going to be involved with Scare Me Now, just not as much. I'm going to spend a little more time with this channel, doing some more live shows and some things that I want to do. YouTube's doing what they want, and I'm kind of going to do what I want to. I got a few videos I want to put out later on next year that I'm going to do some a few on some movies, and it's not going to be the typical just a movie type thing, but I'm going to pick a few, like some that had a lot of good music in it, like Eddie and the Cruisers. Do you guys remember that? I think I'm going to do a little bit of a documentary on Eddie and the Cruisers, and I'm going to start doing more here with the live shows once I can get this darn software to start working properly and quit farting out. I have no clue what it is. I'm not really good with software, but I may have to try another one. You know, this one here, I pay $500 a year for this, and it's just not working. Like I said, you can see I don't know if you can see it, but my video, you know, that I see of myself is very blurry and everything, and it's not doing it. But, yeah, Dylan, yeah, he Charlie played on a couple of Dylan's albums. It was the ones that was recorded in Nashville, if I remember correctly, but I may be wrong. And I said, I'm glad you do love the channel. I appreciate you guys, you know, coming in and hanging out and watching the videos and things like that. Michael Chewing, he was a good old boy. You know, he never lost. If you watch the rest of that video on the channel, he never lost sight. You know, he changed, he mellowed as he got older. Sure, you know, he had some music that was kind of off the wall, but you know, he went back to his gospel roots for a while and put out some gospel albums, and that's where he started from. You know, if you listen to the beginning of that video, you know, he started out with gospel music, and he was raised like that. So, and I think he lived and lived his life in music, and pretty much could hold his head high at the end there. Could I do some shows on Linda Ronstadt and Hart? Do you mean live shows or videos? Which do you mean? Answer me that. I have videos. I mean, you might not have seen them, but I do have videos on Linda Ronstadt and Nancy Wilson. I've got, yeah. You know what? I'll tell you what. Come back Wednesday. I've got a video that, again, another one YouTube didn't show to anybody on Linda Ronstadt. And we'll break it down and talk about Linda. I got some great pictures of her and things like that. And we'll do that. We'll do Linda Ronstadt on Wednesday, pretty sure. And like I said, I got to get to work this week and find out what the hell is going on with this software. Let me ask y'all a question real quick before I go here. Does my video look blurry to you right now? You know, I keep thinking it's my eyes. You know, I got terrible eyesight. But it flickered and everything's blurry in it now. I've tried to remove it and put it back in, and it won't do it. Yeah, it looks blurry, don't it? Mm-hmm. I thought it did. That's this software, and I'm gonna have to do that. I don't know. Hey JW, good to see you, man. You're very welcome. No problem at all. And as always, the sound was whirring. What are you watching this on your phone, TV? A computer? Tell me what you're watching it on, Melissa. You lost me. Eddie, Dark Side Coming. Oh, yeah, the Eddie and the Cruisers. I'm sorry, man. I got so much crap running through my mind now with this software and everything. I can't even remember where I'm at. I don't even remember my own name. And I got another computer here. I don't know if you can see it or not. I just yanked it out. It's my old recording computer. I'm going to take it down to the shop and get it fixed. It's got an internal sound card, and I'm going to go back and start recording music again. And maybe on Wednesday, if you guys show up, I'll play you some songs that I produced at my old studio that I used to have. I'll let you hear some of it. On your phone, okay. That might be because of the audio. It's called latency, I believe. And when you're not got a direct line to it, sometimes you will get a kind of a like that. But I'm not saying that's exactly it, because I have problems with this picture. Like I said, this software is really giving me trouble. But either way, guys, I hate to do it. I hate to leave good company. I'm having a great time, but I do have to go. So I want you all to take care of yourself, and thank you so much for stopping in and staying tonight. We had a good time, and we'll do some Linda Ronstadt maybe next on Wednesday night. We'll get Wednesday night going, and we're going to have I'll get one more in for Christmas, and I take some time off over Christmas. You might not see me for a little while. I'm trying to think what I got going on. But I need to take some time off. I got a lot of things I need to keep up with here at my house, and some family coming in, friends, and things like that. But I'm going to definitely get a live show going this coming Wednesday, and then we'll have at least one for Christmas, and we'll just talk about, what I'd like to talk about. I don't want to talk about music. I want to talk about Christmas shows. Movies, whatever. What's your favorite Christmas show? And different things like that, and who did good Christmas songs and things like that. So I'll dig some up, and you guys keep an eye out and think about some of your favorites too, so we can talk about them. I got to go, guys. Thank you all so much for stopping by, staying here, and hanging out with me. And I will catch you again. God bless y'all. And be kind to each other, just as George Harrison said.